In this video, we're going to talk about how to get a table of values for a graph that we've made. In the last video, we plotted the function x squared plus 3x plus 2, and to graph it, we went to graph. If I want a table of values, I can press second graph, and that pulls up the table function that was above the graph button. And you'll notice it gives me values in increments of 1, and if I scroll up, I can see those numbers that are less than 0 for my input. This table does a couple of things. First, I can see right off the bat those two x values that correspond with y is 0. This guy had nice, pretty integer x-intercepts, and I can pick those off my table. I can also see where x is 0. That y value is also a nice, pretty integer in this case. So that table function can help you plot functions on a graph on paper much more neatly. I don't just have to look at the graph and estimate where those points are. I can pull up a table of values and then graph the points that are within the scope of the graph I have on paper. -4 to 1 would probably fit on a graph that I gave you on paper. We're also going to talk a little bit about the calc and the trace buttons. So if I go back to my graph menu, there are ways that I can find specific points along that curve. That's going to come from the calc menu, which is above the trace button. So second trace. And it pops up a couple of things that we're going to be interested in, which are those first four. The value at a specific x input, the zeros or x-intercepts, and the minimums and maximums in a curve. For a parabola, those would give us our vertices. For value, we can use that to find our y-intercept. So let's go ahead and do that with our parabola. I'm going to press enter to select value, and then I want the y value when x is 0. So I input 0 and press enter, and it takes the cursor to where that point is and tells me that y is 2. So I know from that calculate menu, my y-intercept is at 2. I can also use that calculate menu to find those x-intercepts. Second trace, and I'm going to select 0. And you'll notice when I do that, it takes me to the graphing screen and asks me left boundary. It's asking me to give it an estimate of where I think this 0 is just to the left of it. And we think that 0 is at -2, so I'm going to go just a little bit past -2 and press enter to set that as the left search bound. And then it asks me for a right boundary. I'm going to take my cursor just to the right of where I think that 0 is. And I'm going to press enter. So on the graphing scheme right now with those two vertical lines, I suspect that I have an x-intercept between those two values. And the calculator is asking, do you want me to guess? And we're going to press enter to say yes. And you'll notice the calculator found a 0. Our 0 is at x equals -2. In order to find the vertex, we're going to use a similar strategy. To find minimums and maximums, we go back to that calc menu, second trace. For our parabola, because it's a happy face parabola, we know we have a minimum. And just like with our zeros, it's asking us for a left boundary for our search area and a right boundary. So I'm going to put my cursor near that first 0 for my left bound. I'm going to put the cursor near the second 0 for my right bound because I know my vertex is between my zeros. I'm then going to press enter to tell the calculator to guess. And I can see that the calculator is guessing -1.4999998. I have a sneaking suspicion, based on what I know about parabolas, that that should be negative 1.5. Because I know that my vertex should occur halfway between my zeros. If I have a 0 at negative 2 and a 0 at negative 1, I should have a vertex at x equals negative 1.5. So one thing to keep in mind when you use your calc button to calculate things from a graph, the calculator is actually going through a set of commands to estimate where that point is. Sometimes you're going to have to round it to the next nearest reasonable value. In this case, I would record that my minimum, or my vertex, is at x equals negative 1.5, y equals negative 0.25. All right, if you have any other questions about how to graph functions on your calculator, please send me an email or drop by room 111.